Picture this. Today in Augusta, a frost advisory surprised residents with an unexpected chill.
All right, let's kick things off. Hi, I'm Garrett.
And I'm Leah. Welcome to Laid Back Local, the news of the day, with Leah and Garrett in Augusta.
First up, unexpected frost advisory hits south central Maine in May. The National Weather Service, the federal agency that issues alerts, says temperatures could dip to around 34 to 35 degrees. The advisory covers Kennebec and Androscoggin counties, plus central Cumberland and interior York. The southern coastline is not included. The setup is a trough overhead, a dip in the jet stream that lets cooler air slide in, combined with northwesterly winds driving cold air advection, meaning colder air being pushed into the region.
Wow, in May. That's so wild. For gardeners and farmers around Augusta, cover those tender plants and seedlings. Even a light frost can nip them. It's late in the season for this kind of chill here in southern Maine, and I know folks have already put in tomatoes and basil. Real talk, this one came out of nowhere for a lot of us. Why are we still seeing frost in May? What's the simple reason?
Two quick things. Clear nights and a cool, dry air mass let heat radiate away from the ground fast, so surfaces can drop to freezing even when the air a few feet up reads the mid-30s. Add that northwest breeze pulling in the cooler air, and boom, patchy frost. It's uncommon this late here, but not unheard of. If you can, bring potted plants indoors and cover anything tender at ground level.
Okay, let's move on. Next up, tragic Chelsea murders unveil deep flaws in Maine's child welfare system. In Chelsea, just across the river from Augusta, a 16-year-old was charged with killing his foster parent and another individual last June. This teen's life has been incredibly unstable. Removed from his parents by age 6 and moved through 17 different homes since his birth in 2009. Family and providers had raised mental health concerns, and he was hospitalized for suicidal thoughts in 2023. This case shines a hard light on Maine's child welfare system. There's been high staff turnover and heavy caseloads, and the foster population grew quickly between 2019 and 2024. Advocates say older teens face a serious service gap compared to younger kids. It's the first time in Maine that a child in the welfare system has been charged with murder, and it's prompted calls for reform and a review of how the state's Department of Health and Human Services handled the case. The state has put more than $17 million toward the system this year, but families want to see how that translates to real help.
That hits different. It's heartbreaking, and it really raises the question, could upstream support have changed the outcome? We don't know, and that's being debated, but 17 placements for one kid over 16 years tells you the system's stretched. I'm down for that investment if it closes the gap for teens. Why is that teen services gap so stubborn, though?
Part of it is complexity. Older teens often need specialized behavioral health care, more stable long-term placements, and transition supports to adulthood. Those slots are limited, and when staff are overloaded, consistency suffers. That's not a blame game. It's just naming the reality so it can be fixed. We can't just leave it at that, can we? The calls for reform need to lead to training, retention, and the right placements for teens who need them most.
Next up, cold case breakthrough. Arrest made in the 1987 murder of Alice Hawks. Stephen Bouchard, a 63-year-old from Winslow, has been charged almost 40 years after Hawks was found dead in her Westbrook apartment. A cold case is just a long, unsolved investigation. A renewed push in 2025 led a Cumberland County grand jury, a citizen panel that decides whether charges are warranted, to indict him. He's being held without bail and is expected to be arraigned soon, which is the first court appearance to hear the charges.
What a twist. I admire the perseverance from law enforcement and from Hawks' family, who kept pressing for answers. One surprising detail here. Bouchard had no prior criminal record, according to a recent background check. That doesn't say anything about guilt or innocence by itself, but it does underline how complex these decades-old cases can be.
Folks often ask why it takes so long. Sometimes it's as simple as a fresh set of eyes, re-interviewing witnesses, or re-examining old evidence with new questions. The key is persistence, and that's a solid point to carry forward.
Next up, Maine prisoner's escape ends with arrest in New Hampshire. Brian Day, age 45, was serving a 3.5-year sentence for theft and forgery at Bolduc Correctional Facility. He walked off a job site in Thomaston earlier in May and was arrested the next day in Rochester, New Hampshire, along with Candace Fisher, who authorities believed he was traveling with. Both were taken into custody without incident. Day had what's called community custody certification, meaning he was cleared for supervised work outside the prison. The escape highlights potential vulnerabilities in that system. Quick reminder, these outside placements aim to help low-risk inmates build work skills before release, but they still rely on trust and oversight.
Yeah, that checks out. Rehabilitation matters, and so does public safety. Reviewing how job site headcounts, transportation, and alerts are handled could tighten things up without scrapping what works. Not gonna lie, even small tweaks can make a big difference in moments like this. Last up, Contour Airlines eyes Augusta State Airport for new flight routes. Contour Airlines, a Tennessee-based carrier, brought one of its 30-seat jets to Augusta as part of its pitch to the U.S. Department of Transportation. They're proposing regular flights from Augusta to Boston and Washington, D.C. They're competing with California-based Boutique Air, while Cape Air's current contract, which began in 2010, expires in October 2026.
That's pretty cool, right? Bigger planes would be a big shift for us. Cape Air's current service uses 9-seat planes. Contour's talking 30 seats. More capacity could mean more reliable connections for folks heading to Boston hospitals or DC meetings, and maybe fewer long drives down I-95. It could be a boost for local businesses, too, with easier in-and-out travel.
If you're wondering how the DOT decides, it typically looks at reliability, cost, and community benefit. The introduction of larger jets could expand access, but they'll weigh performance and the overall service plan. We'll keep an eye on how the proposals shake out. This one's got legs, don't you think?
That's it for today's episode of Laid Back Local, the news of the day with Leah and Garrett here in Augusta. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you tomorrow.